this commission should be much more um, meaningful and probably even longer than the current report. So right now, as you know, many of you know, in February this year, we had the second of hearings, this time of committee hearing, judiciary committee hearing on HR 40. In April last month, we had the first ever judiciary committee markup, meaning that they debated the bill in the judiciary committee, looked at the changes, the revisions that were made, then they voted the bill up or down. In this case, they voted it up. And they voted it in line with their political party. I think the vote was 24-17, 24 Dems, 7 Green Republicans. That's the challenge that we face. This is a partisan bill at this particular moment. So that's the challenge in a sense that to move this bill to the floor, we need almost every Democrat who is in Congress to co-sponsor this bill, or in some instances, we've gotten statements that I'm not going to co-sponsor, but I will vote yes if it makes it to the floor. And so that's the challenge, because there's a very slim majority of Democrats in the House. We need a simple majority, 217 plus 1, that's 435 congresspersons. So we need a simple majority, 217 plus 1, that's 218. We now have 185 co-sponsors. We're looking to push that number to 200 before a House vote is scheduled, meaning that the whip will have to whip up the final 18 votes. We're confident that we may get to that 200 vote, but what 200 number of co-sponsors. But one of the challenges we have is that the leader of the House, Steny Hoyer, has stated that there are some centrist Democrats that if they bring the bill to the floor, yeah, they'll be forced to vote for it because they have to vote with the party, or likely will vote for the party. But he's concerned that in making that effort, they will have some backlash in the next elections that they may lose the House. The Democrats may lose the House. So what his statement is in regards to this challenge, this reality, is that I will, quote unquote, urge the president to move this legislation, not through Congress, but through executive order. Now that's a possibility, but in order for even that to take place, we must continue our pressure in Congress. We must continue our pressure to get these 200 co-sponsors in the Congress. Again, we're at like 33 or so needed to pass the legislation forward, 33 short, but 15 short to get it to Congress, get it to the House floor. On the Senate side, we have similar challenges. On the Senate side, it's a 50-50 split in the Senate, and the vice president would be the tie-breaking vote. In this case, Kamala Harris was a co-sponsor of a Senate bill, 1083, which is now Senate Bill 40. So we know that she's in support of the bill, but unlike the House, in the Senate, we need a supermajority, not a simple majority of 50 plus 1, but we need a supermajority of 60 senators to beat a filibuster. That's almost highly unlikely to happen. So then we have to go back to our plan B, which is, again, executive order. But in order to, again, push the president in this direction, we have to make sure that all of the Senate leadership, Democratic leadership, when we have Senator Schumer, who's totally in support of this legislation, then we can get about 30 senators to co-sponsor S40, and we have 200 House of Representatives. We think that 230 number of Democratic congressmen, a large 80% of the Democratic congressmen in office, will be enough to push the president in this direction. So there's a tremendous amount of work still ahead. What we've always found out in this country as African people, as Black people, is that the closer we get to any victory, the more intense the battle becomes. And that's where we're at now. We're in an intense battle. We've never been in this place before on this particular legislation, uh, redress legislation since Reconstruction over 150 years ago. And it's taken a lot of work by a lot of different people to get us to this point. But be sure and be clear that the battle is intensifying and that all hands are needed on deck. And we need to be speaking in one voice to move this legislation or to move this goal over to the side of victory. And again, I thank you, Congressman Davis, for giving NCOBRA. And I just want to give a big shout out to the NCOBRA Chicago chapter, who's done some magnificent work in the city. We collectively moved to get a subcommittee on reparations in the Chicago City Council. It was a tremendous move on work on the part of the Chicago chapter of NCOBRA. And I also want to thank publicly right now Alderman Simmons for giving NCOBRA, making April 21st NCOBRA Day in the city of Evanston. So thank you, Congressman Davis. Thank you, Alderman Simmons.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Cam, for giving that explanation of the realities of the political processes and how they sometimes work and what helps to keep them moving. And I think that's one of the reasons that people will often say, we might give out, but we'll never give up. And different circumstances sort of dictate and mandate and give credence to the way in which strategic moves are made and how impactful those moves can be. And so the longevity of engagement and involvement, I was looking and I saw where I did a resolution in 2002 that was a concurrent resolution supporting the efforts and activities of individuals, organizations, and other entities to honor the lives of enslaved Africans in the United States and to make reparations to their descendants for slavery and its lingering effects. Well, H.R. 40, John was only able to get one serious hearing on H.R. 40 during the time that he was a member of Congress. And that was when, and because he was chairman of the Judiciary Committee at that time. And had he not been chairman of the Judiciary Committee, it's possible that that hearing would not have taken place. And that's why this business of every aspect of engagement in public policy decision-making, even voting, keeping people engaged. We're talking about all of the great and wonderful things that might be taking place in the House of Representatives and in the Senate in terms of stimulus. But if the two senators had not been elected in Georgia, that's why some days I wake up and I'll simply say, Georgia on my mind. Or I'll wake up and say, thank you to the people of Georgia for electing those two senators, because had they not, I don't think we'd be talking about $2,000 stimulus checks. I don't think we'd be talking about people incarcerated getting stimulus checks. I don't think we'd be talking about an increase in SNAP benefits that people are getting. So all of it really kind of go together. And that's why you don't see me attacking very often whatever it is that's a part of the effort that people are doing. That's one phase. Something else is another phase. Alderman Tillman, are you with us now? Alderman Tillman may not be, but I know that if not, the Chicago City Council has made some movement. And I know that Alderman Pat Dow is on with us. And before we go to the question and comments and answers, Alderman Dow, would you tell us what the Chicago City Council has done and the meaningfulness of that?
Thank you, Congressman Davis, and thank you to the other speakers, to the aldermen, and to Cam. Thank you for your presentation. I'm listening very intently on the steps that you have taken, both in Evanston, in Chicago, and nationally. In Chicago, as was stated, we passed a resolution creating a subcommittee. That subcommittee is headed by Alderman Stephanie Coleman and Alderman Andre Vasquez. I believe that they have had one meeting so far, with other meetings to be scheduled. And currently, we are trying to put the reparation discussion in play with the American Rescue Plan dollars that the city of Chicago is receiving from the federal government. I think we're to receive $1.9 billion. And people are putting various proposals on the table. I believe that Alderman Coleman and Alderman Vasquez are looking at that, along with the Black Caucus headed by Chairman Jason Irvin. So there's not much to report. I think it's good that we've moved this far. I think the pandemic has slowed some of the discussion because everything is now virtual. On a lot of these discussions, you just have to have face-to-face. But I will say that the entire Black Caucus is committed to that process, and we have a lot of support from other committees. So there's really nothing to report from that perspective other than what I just said.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And we'll get right into the question period. Who has taught in the Evanston School District and taught in Chicago and has been a, what's this, Apple teacher that you be? Well, she's one of the most effective educators that I know. And she's writing her dissertation for a doctoral degree on reparations. Would you mention for us, Demetrius, how you are approaching this? Well, then I'll go ahead with a question. It's good to know that Camille Lilly, state representative, my state representative, as a matter of fact, the Honorable Camille Lilly is on with us. And at some point she may tell us what the Illinois General Assembly, they've done some great work on criminal justice reform, some great work on healthcare, and I don't know exactly where they are in terms of the reparations business. But Alderman Simmons, I wanted to ask you, how did the Evanston City Council decide what the priorities would be in terms of the areas that you decided to deal specifically with in terms of allocating resources in those areas? I think you need to unmute. Alderman Simmons is not able to unmute. Maybe we can help her. Okay, I think we're getting there. I think Dr. Nance has a question. Dr. Nance, you want to go right ahead? Is there someone else who have a question or comment? They are all muted, so.
I know I muted them because they were talking.
But Alderman Simmons is ready to respond if she can get unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for the question. And the City Council was able to actually approve the recommendation from the Equity Empowerment Commission, which came from the stakeholder community, the residents of Evanston. And so in 2019, as I mentioned, I really thought there would be a model to sort of implement in Evanston, but there wasn't. So fortunately, I decided to make the introduction to committee instead of using my automatic privilege to go to special orders of business. It would have gone straight to City Council. We would have deliberated among us, but it went through a long process starting in committee, and the community gave feedback to the commission, Equity Empowerment Commission, on what our priorities were, what forms of reparations we wanted to see. And it's a very long list, dozens of recommendations, included things that were in our purview and things that were not in our purview, like a neighborhood school, Northwestern University giving free tuition to the Black community, a Black History Museum. It included various forms of grants and access to capital and other programs as well. And that long list was condensed into a majority. It was prioritized based on the communities and put together in the form of a official legislative introduction or recommendation from the commission, which later went to the City Council. So long story short, we prioritize housing, economic development, and educational initiatives based on community feedback that happened over the course of 2019. Since that time, we've had obviously a dozen meetings from February 2019 until November 2019, when we passed the resolution. We had a total of 15 community meetings where stakeholders came, participated, added to the work and the goals, and the recommendation was approved by the City Council in November of 2019. So that's how we got to that goal. But now that we've passed it, there's and it became an international news story. More residents in the community have decided that they want to participate and be involved. And Congressman, we're going to continue our community process with the new reparations committee and the new City Council recently being seated, and continue to prioritize our work being led by the stakeholder voice. But it's appropriate because we have Evanston policy that is proven to be anti-Black, proven to be harmful, proven to have stripped away wealth and injured us in various ways. And so we have a 77-page report that's available on our website that talks about some of the details of Evanston's legislative history and other practices that have been anti-Black and harmful over the years.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Representative Lilly, has the Illinois General Assembly or the Black Caucus of Legislators taken a formal position yet on reparations?
We do. Thank you, Congressman Davis. Thank you for the town hall, and thank you for I'm going to say, the soldiers in this journey as African Americans in America. We have approximately 3 bills along with our pillars to address the issues of reparation. We have addressing healthcare, property, and restorative justice. We are looking to work with Evanston's elected officials to see exactly how we can expand and replicate what has happened there on a statewide level. So yes, we have. It has been a journey to get us this in the past 2020, when everyone really opened their eyes to see through COVID-19 through the same lens, the disparities and harm they were causing to people, and Pacific people, Black and Brown communities. And then we have our own history in the Black community. So yes, we are. Real quickly, the 4 pillars that the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus put forth addresses criminal justice reform and restorative justice, education and workforce development, economic development and equity, and healthcare and human services. And decades have gone by where we've had legislation, these are omnibus bills, over 300 different pieces of legislation, bring forth the disparities and the infrastructure divestment that have been occurring in Illinois for decades. We've brought them forth in this particular effort. What we're on the battlefield as soldiers is the implementation of them. And yes, we do need the courage of many of you on this phone to make sure that the legislation passed, that the appropriation and the follow-up to policy that's turning things around for our people. So we are on our way. It's taken us a while, as mentioned, through the other 2 presenters. It's taken a while to get us here, but we are here. We're not at the finish line, in my opinion, but we have a plan to get us there that everyone we've had in the House, the majority of the House members voted for all 4 pillars. I chaired the Health and Human Service pillar, and all 72 of the House members voted for that bill. So we are moving in the direction together. And I'm just so happy to see the state, the city, the federal government working together on these pieces of legislation. And I just do believe we need to make sure it's uniform and we understand each one, and we're carrying the message across government levels. I'll stop there.
I understand that there is a fund that's centered to someone. I'm not sure about it, but whoever the person is, if you would mention it, go ahead and tell us about it. It's a fund that senators, I didn't see the rest of the information in the chat, but if you want to just tell us about it, please go ahead and tell us.
Okay, well, let me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Well, there's a number of funds that are developed in each of the pillars that allows dollars for appropriation of dollars for the enhancement and advancement and correction of health, of quality life here in Illinois. Leader Mary Flowers, Leader Leader Kimberly Lyford, Leader LG Sims, Leader Maddie Hunter, all have bills that create funds. And myself, I have one, the create fund for access to health care. It is so important that we keep an eye on it and make sure we fund it. With the ARPA dollars that are coming in, these are one-time dollars that's coming into the state of Illinois. Over $20 billion have come in from the federal government to Illinois due to COVID-19. And I want to say thank you, Congressman Davis, for making sure that we are getting resources that's going to address our needs. So I'm clapping my hands and praising the Lord that you are in Washington, D.C. on our behalf. The fund will be right now is what we call a GATA compliant kind of fund, but we're trying to turn that around where our communities do not have to apply for these dollars, that they just will receive the dollars to address their issue. For reparation from property to education to healthcare. Those are the 4 areas.
Well, thank you very much, and you know, I am just appreciative of the work that all of these legislative bodies are doing. I know that Representative Sheila Jackson Lee did an outstanding job of shepherding through the Judiciary Committee, and she never forgets or she never relinquishes thoughts about John Conyers and the effort that he put forth. But because John was not able to get it out of committee or get it to the finish line, and of course we've got to get it passed in the Senate as well, so there won't be any giving up. There will be a continuation, and I think that's what we've seen, and that's what we will continue to see. I think Pamela Letcher has a question or comment.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Unfortunately, I haven't had time to read up on this. I think it's a bill, but I'm not sure. The Asian hate bill that was recently discussed. I don't know how it got put into place so quickly. I'm very curious about it, and I think perhaps we should craft some similar bill to address the situation that has been going on for almost 400 years.
Yeah.
I mean, how is it that the Asians have been paid? Okay, they were jailed, but we are still in jail. We are still in prison. We're in prison in our neighborhoods. We're in prison in prison. We're in prison at school. We are the most watched, observed, detained peoples in the United States of America. And it needs to be, we've got to stop it. Because if we don't do it during these next 3 years, I'm not sure if we'll ever be able to do it. And that's a fact to me. I don't know what everyone else thinks, but that's just my opinion.
Well, I certainly won't disagree with your opinion in terms of needing to add some real step up. Judy Chu happens to serve on the subcommittee that I chair. And so she's the person who introduced the Asian hate crime bill. But also, I think to some degree it was in response to the shooting of people in Atlanta, but I think there were 8 members of the Asian community who were shot, you know, in a relatively short period of time. And of course, I think the fact that Black Lives Matter and all of the other groups and organizations that have been working, raising issues is the reason, part of the reason that we were able to get HR 40 out of committee, was part of the reason that the George Floyd bill was passed, and part of the reason that some other legislative activity is taking place. So I think all of these things really have influence and impact. For example, I am so delighted that Black Lives Matter has emerged with the level of activism, because many of the issues surrounding law enforcement misconduct have been discussed and talked about and dealt with by some people for a long time. But as more and more people got engaged, that created enough momentum to actually get the movement that was needed to get them passed. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think Dr. Nance, you had a comment.
Yes. Earlier, a young man was speaking about President Biden and providing an executive order for reparation for the issue he was talking about. I think it was it was part of reparations. But what I'm thinking is that with this thing going on with Israel right now, might be a great opportunity to challenge him about this executive order because of the support that he and other Americans have for Israel rather than having it for Africa and what we went through, because we went through a whole lot of things too. And so I just wanted to comment on that because I don't know, well, I do know, but I won't talk about it now. What needs to happen is that he needs to be persuaded. And I think Democrats, other than yourself, Congressman Davis, because you put things straightforward, but a lot of politicians just do political jargon when they're talking about these issues instead of going straight to the point about what's going on. Because that's what people want to hear. They want to know exactly what's happening. They don't want to hear all this stuff. Because how you going to get support from the other side, the Republicans, when they ain't trying to support? They ain't trying to do nothing but put everything down that Democrats want to do. So that's what I have to say.
Well, I would certainly agree that they have indicated that they want to block whatever it is that Democrats are talking about. The only other thing I'll say in terms of the Middle East is that it's a tough issue.
It ain't tough.
It's tough. Well,
It's not tough. All they have to do is cut that money off from Israel and it'll be over.
That's right.
that would probably make a big difference. But I believe in what
Okay,
it's
so
called.
stop and check. Add another rubber ring to the other side now, hold it in place and push both of the rubber rings in until they are up against the wood leg, which you did, right?
No.
Well, many people just simply don't comment on that issue at all. I believe in a two-state solution. I believe that the Palestinians have a right to a safe homeland. I also believe that the Israelis, that Israel has a right to feel secure. Now, working that out to make that happen, obviously, that seems to be very difficult for the parties involved to be able to do. And other countries, some just kind of let it lay. And of course, we know that the United States has been very pro-Israel. from everything that I've read, everything that I've seen, everything that I've heard, even though it was, an African-American who was involved in creating the lands. Ralph Bunch was very much involved in the creation of the country there. and I think it still remains a tough issue.
Those Europeans shouldn't even.
I think Reverend Marvin Hunter, you had a comment.
Oh no, sir. I was just making sure that I could unmute just in case I could engage in the conversation. So I'm able to unmute, but thank you. I think this is really great. Hello?
Yes, thank you very much. Anyone else?
Camille Arnold.
Mr. Arnold?
Camille Arnold.
Camille Arnold?
Mute. We
Yes.
can't. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Hi, Congressman Davis. Yes, thank you for having this. You're just a great congressman. You're always finding a way to reach the people. I really appreciate that. So I agree with Cam's topic when he was talking about reparations. So I learned about reparations through my affiliation with Trinity United Church of Christ under Jeremiah Wright, and through affiliations with CAM and the community university in Chicago. I support the bill, but I will say this, I think it doesn't go big enough. I support what Cam was saying about needing to have findings and a study, because there's a lot more to reparations. I see this as a government plan to help Black people, but that doesn't seem to me to cover all of reparations. Reparations would include, as Alderman Tillman would say, I believe she would say, in terms of corporations that profited off of the slave trade. If you look at some of the work that the Amistad Committee has done under the United Church of Christ, where they talk about how the cotton industry and picking of the cotton funded the fashion industry in New York City. If you look at the whiskey industry, the food industry, it was African Americans that cultivated the rice, the tobacco. I mean, all of the knowledge that we brought from Africa to cultivate the land and make profits in America for corporations, that does not seem to be covered in the bill that we have now. It could be that they will never make those acknowledgments and pay what they owe, but I do think that a study and a report of how the corporations profited off of slavery and Black disempowerment should be done, and that should be part of reparations as well. I also believe that I support sort of the local communities, tailoring reparations to the individual needs, but I do think there are some universal, like bigger goals that we need to have sort of to set up the structure. For example, we need more doctors, not just access to healthcare, but Black doctors, Black psychologists, Black psychiatrists. We need funding for Black male teachers. We need Black dentists. We need to use the force and the money of government to fund areas where Black people are lacking and develop those professions. When we talk about wellness, we need to talk about Black food deserts, grocery stores in Black communities. Black people were the ones that tilled the land and fed America, yet they do not have grocery stores in their own communities. And that is fundamentally unfair. So I think that we need to go big in those areas. And then I'd like to also say that I believe we also need continued education. How do the Black masses, how do they learn about reparations and its importance? The structure will say, as Dr. Greg Carr will put it, the structure will say we must go through Congress and negotiate there, and that is true. But there's also outside the structure in terms of the Black masses getting the kids out and marching in the streets. But that would take them to understand what reparations is about. We've been fighting for it since a book I have here, Chronology of the Reparations Movement. We've been fighting for this since the 1700s. We need to get the word out to children and the youth in the street through education. Also for undergirding and the spiritual component, if you would like, well, Jeremiah Wright has been a proponent of reparations, and he looks at it from a biblical perspective. I believe that spiritual undergirding, education, and word on the street are also ways that we can push this forward. Thank you.
Well, I think what you've done is you've laid out a quality of life scenario that begins, I think, in the home. I also believe that we can discuss reparations at block club meetings if we've got one. I confess that much of what I learned about Blackness as a child, I learned at church, at something called KYB clubs. And it just simply meant know your Bible. But they taught us a lot of things that went beyond the Bible. They taught us how to have pride, how to have dignity, how to deal effectively with each other in terms of group decision-making, how to treat women, how to treat men, how to attract each other's attention. They taught a lot of things that I think some of which is missing in some way. I hear African Americans talk a great deal about the economic condition of our communities, but spend all the money that they have at their individual disposal with other people and spend none in the communities where they live, or spend none with Black businesses that exist. So I think we just have to keep trying to move and trying to do what is necessary in order to reach the quality of life and the quality of being. Personally, I often make the comment that I don't ever want to get to the basement and think that I'm in the penthouse or act like I'm in the penthouse. We've made little bits and pieces of progress, but we've still got a long, long, long way to go before we experience anything close to equity. When I hear people talk about a 30-year life expectancy difference from downtown Chicago out to Inglewood or to North Lawndale or some other place, it just means that we've got to keep moving every way that we can. I think Joanna Hall had a comment. Joanna Hall?
Yeah, can y'all hear me now?
Yes, go right ahead.
So yeah, I want us to be very, very, very realistic about the limitations we have with regard to this right now, as well as this short window that we have to get this passed. Congressman, I think you touched on a lot of really, really good points with regard to the history, where we currently exist with this, and the opportunities we have to move forward. But the reality is the limitations that we have primarily come from the lack of power we have. Right? Like we have the governor, right? The Democratic Party controls the entire state legislature right now. They have a supermajority. The Democratic Party controls the city of Chicago's city council, right? The budget chair is a Black woman who's running for a higher office right now, right? These are the realities that we have. And all these people so claim to be supportive of a reparations agenda, yet none of these individuals were elected on a reparations agenda. None of these individuals have ever taken the time to even move forward to try to develop a reparations sort of agenda in order to get some sort of reparative justice for Black people in this nation. So I just want us to be realistic about these limitations, about these people who are claiming to so-called want to represent us and to move this agenda forward, right? And that's not to disparage you, Congressman Davis. I know your history with this, but I just want us to be realistic about all of the actors involved, all of the different agendas that exist, right? As we all know, all of our skin folk are not kinfolk, right? And I just want to be realistic about that as we continue to move forward with this and understanding the need to build real power, right? Collective political power, right? So yeah, and I digress with that because like I just want to be real about it. I've been a part of like the NCOBRA organization since about 2013, 2014. I'm in law school right now primarily because I know of the need of legal minds to move reparations forward as an agenda. And I also just again like I'm very frustrated as a very active and participatory citizen who has yet to see any of my elected representatives move forward with a substantive plan for reparative justice for Black folks. So and with that, I digress.
Could I ask you a question?
Feel
How
free.
do we acquire the power that you're talking about?
We organize. You bring young folks into the fold, right? You go talk to the brother on the street. You talk to the sister on the street, right? We talk to those disenfranchised folks who don't recognize the power that they have in their vote. And we make them understand with a message that connects with them, right? A message that can be centered around reparations. I can't name a single elected official who has ever ran on an agenda of reparations. I can't name you a single elected official who's primarily organized around reparations, right? I can't. I know of Alderman Simmons's work because of NCOBRA, right? I know of the support and the work of John Conyers because of NCOBRA, but I can't tell you anybody since I've been politically active, and I've been politically active since I was at least 12 or 13 years old, right? I can't tell you anybody who's talked or organized young folks specifically around reparations and tried to activate them around this issue as an issue of a political movement. It just doesn't exist. Nobody's having this conversation. And I know a lot of young folks who would love to be involved with a reparations movement, but ain't nobody talking to them about it. And when I talk to them about it, it's Jawan. I'm their homie, right? I'm just Jawan from the block. I'm Jawan from 79th, right? So having an elected official who is actually, who has some power to actually come to you and say, hey, this is a reality, young brother, young sister. If you get on board and, you do X, Y, and Z, and you help us organize, you help us make calls, and you educate your family, you educate your friends, and you tell them how powerful they can be within this movement, we can actually get something done. Nobody's doing that. And honestly, it's frustrating for me to be on this call and also to hear folks like say, we need to get more young folks, right? I've been the young folks in the room since I was 10 years old. I've been them folks. So I know it's young folks in the room. What we're not doing is we're not talking to all the young folks. We ain't talking to all the folks. We're talking to certain folks. And so again, with that, I'll digress. And I hope that answers your question, Congressman.
Yeah, the other part of it was, do you think a person would get elected just on a platform of reparations?
If somebody running on reparations, if you develop a reparation, Alderman Dow, I'm telling you right now, come out with a reparations plan tomorrow that's around your Secretary of State office. Not only do you got my vote, you got my financial support, and I'll bring at least 10 of my friends to the next events you have. That's how much I care about reparations.
All right. Thank you so much. And I think Reverend Dr. McCray has a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Congressman. Appreciate this. Well, I think just technically, if the chat can be available to everyone so that we can download the issues, some of the issues and questions that were being raised at this time. And as president of National Black Evangelical Association, we have a reparations coordinator, Dr. Ann C. Bailey. And so we have taken a stand as a certified Black evangelicals to support the movement of reparations and to mobilize as much as we can nationally and or locally in support of the movement. That's what I wanted to say. And we put her name in the chat as well as her email address, because we would love to coordinate with those on the national scene. Matter of fact, she was interviewed as far as being a part of the commission. And so we think that she will be a part of the commission to study for reparations. All right, so we want to connect and we want to commend what's being done. I do believe that this is our time in history. I think we should strike while the iron is hot. And I believe if we have to do the so-called nuclear option, as far as the Senate is concerned, and do away with the filibuster to get certain things done, that we need to do that. And then we need to just let the future begin to take care of itself. That's what I believe, that this is the time that we got to act, because if the Republicans, I believe, regain control of the House or the Senate, that we will be set back 100 years.
All right, well, thank you very much. And I think we have to incorporate as much into our effort as we possibly can. And let me go to Everett Berry, who has a comment. Everett? If we don't have Everett, let me go to Jeffrey Murphy. Jeffrey Murphy.
Good afternoon.
Okay, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Okay.
Just chiming in here. I'm listening to the comments and some of the suggestions, and all are great.
Hey, hit the fucking unmute button.
Oh,
ooh,
please.
Except that one. But all of the questions and comments are great. I'm thinking that from my limited understanding of reparations, these were terms that was used during wartime when we invaded other countries, and we destroyed their infrastructures and so forth. We paid reparations to those countries. Today's society seems to, we take terms and we bend them and mold them into new terms. However, our laws are still old terms. So I struggle with this oftentimes, because if we say reparations in terms of trying to get things done legally, in my opinion, we're not on track, because we're not looking for reparations. I heard some comments that says that we want restoration, we want acknowledgements and so forth for the oppression and regression that's been dealt to citizens of the United States. You know, African American or Black citizens, however you want to describe us. So that's all good. And each election, every politician seems to run on something given to the Black community and so forth. So we've kind of played this record over and over again. I mean, we're in my opinion, it seems like we're just all talk. What I would put forth is that we have to, or we should, stop being crabs in a barrel. Today I'm listening, and the subject seems to go from federal to state to local without any structure. I mean, there was just no structure. It's just everybody's talking about give, give, give. But you know, in my opinion, in order to get to that point, we have to have leadership in which leadership we trust, leadership that we would support, and not just at the federal level, but at all levels. And that leadership has to coordinate, just like we have a president and we have organizational structure. We have to do that in order to get this move forward. Because as we can see, we could have Evanston, that no problem, because that's community decided that they felt it was right, and it made national attention. However, other people in other cities and communities are getting left out. I know that it's hard, as humans, we just have this tendency that we always want to, we live in emotions, and those emotions run high. But to play the devil's advocate, and from the things that I can hear sometimes, is that other people, other groups are saying, we have not contributed to your demise. So when we hear that, we have to take in consideration that we're responsible for our own self, regardless of any financial or moral support from governments or any other communities, period. That's just a fact. So I kind of take this loosely, because I have to continue to do what I'm doing daily in order to continue to be able to provide for my family, my friends, my community. And that's just one of the aspects of this. I'm joining today because I do care that these things will become part of American society. And I just hope that we can do it in a way that, like I think you said, Congressman, with dignity, with self-respect, with knowledge, education. I mean, with real intellect, not this power struggle and not this you owe me stuff, because we still have to continue to work hard, whether we get it or not. That should be, in my opinion, the goal. And with that, I'm going to leave it right there. Thanks for the comments.
And thank you so much. And we'll go to Lavette Haynes.
Good afternoon, Congressman. Thank you so much for having this discussion. And I think that the problem may be that it is a discussion that's not normally had. So of course, there are so many unknowns to where we're headed. So I appreciate that we are heading in hopefully a prosperous conclusion. As a gentleman just spoke, to me, as I think about our stolen wealth that has caused us to be at the bottom of the totem pole in all statistics in America, that's one reason that it is owed to us. And another thing is that the racism that has harmed our DNA has caused a lot of problems within our community as far as drugs and alcohol and lack of housing. And it's very disparaging to watch. And as I see so many of my people almost crippled as they walk down the street, lacking from health care, lacking from hope. And so as this conversation continue, what I would like to see is a narrative developed from, as he stated, state, local, and federal, because there are different kinds of messages. As it was stated from the city's perspective, I don't know what the $1.9 billion has to do with reparations, but I think that's being shared amongst the whole United States, or that's shared amongst the whole Chicago. And so how that reparation is going to be carved out for us, that needs to be a narrative explained. So I think that in all of the talking, there should be narrative to explain to the people what reparations is, what they're expected to be getting. So having the reparation conversation publicly may confuse the matter if it's coming from the top and we're not sure from the top what it is that we're expected to be receiving. So in that narrative, I would love to be a part of that discussion so that when we're sharing the information and the narrative of what it is that we're experiencing, we're not tripping over our words, because one thing for sure, Black people are smart enough to understand when you're talking to them and when you're making sense, because they're very righteous people and they want to hear the right thing. So I think that we need to have some studies about how we narrate this story, because we don't want to be left out. We don't want 50 years of another study that says we're in the same spot we were in 50 years ago. So have a great afternoon.
All right, and thank you so very much. I believe we have State Senator Mattie Hunter on the line.
Thank you very much, Congressman, and thank you guys for passing this federal dollars in Washington, D.C. I'd like to thank everyone for joining this meeting this morning. I was the Senate sponsor, actually, of the Transatlantic Slave Trade here in Illinois commission that was created. The piece that Cam Howard is promoting in Washington, along with the Congressional Black Caucus, to help to update it. And I'm really proud of that work that we've done back in 2011 and 2008. I mean, and then also earlier, Representative Lilly, who I was also joined with her in sponsoring the Black Caucus Pillar for Health and Human Services in the Senate. There was a question regarding funds, and so I'm proud to announce that yesterday, well, first of all, I have an affordable housing bill. And Congressman, we were trying to, it was to deal with tax credits, to give tax credits and encourage Black construction companies to build affordable housing, and they would get a tax credit for building that housing. But because of the federal dollars that you all sent to the state, we cannot use those federal dollars on tax credits. So therefore, we just decided at the last minute to delete from the legislation tax credits, and we are now going to call it we're going to create a grant program, so that with over a period of 2 years, we will be putting $300 million into a fund. We met with IDA, the Illinois Housing Development Authority, yesterday, and they are very excited about administering that program for first-time home buyers, and in addition to all of the rent relief and the mortgage relief assistance programs. And so also within that affordable housing first-time home buyer grant program, folks who have a tuition that they like to erase, they will be able to use some of those dollars to erase their tuition as well, to help get out of debt, so that they can better qualify to purchase a home. And even for those who want to upgrade their home, they can qualify for that money as well, because we've never seen this kind of serious money to come into the state to utilize for a number of reasons. Also meeting with some private donors so that they can help finance the Black Caucus State Pillar. I know that the state has a lump sum of money that they're putting into the budget. And so we're getting ready to start implementing the Black Caucus 4 pillars, and we needed monies. And so it looks like we're beginning to find the dollars using state and federal dollars to do so. So Congressman, thank you so very much for allowing me to speak, as well as my colleagues on the city, the state and local level, who, and around the country as well, but especially the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus for working so diligently over the past 12 months to implement the Black Caucus 4 pillars. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Senator Hunter, and I do commend you and your colleagues for the work that you've done in this last session of the state legislature. And I understand you've got another week or so to go before this session is done. We are also pleased to have on the call United States Senator Roland Burris. Senator Burris, we may have lost Senator Burris, but let me go to Kevin Brown from the Safer Foundation.
Thank you so much, Congressman Davis. Appreciate you for this call, for the highlighting the importance of the topic. Appreciate all that you do for the reentry community. You really are a saint in our minds. I'm from Evanston. I live here, been affiliated with this community for 40 years. And I think that the work of Alderman Simmons has been historic and critically important in terms of highlighting this nationally, capitalizing on the social justice challenges that our community is facing. My concern, not for the bill itself, but I think it's a concern that we have to be contend with locally, statewide, and nationally, is for implementation of these programs if we get them across the finish line. And I think it's something that is being worked on in Evanston, but it is a critical concern for the community because what is being represented nationally is that Black people in Evanston, of which there are around 12,000, are some way benefiting from reparations. But the reality of the implementation is that only a very tiny few can possibly benefit at this time. And although it's a 10-year effort, the funding hopefully will grow. I think that we have to put the ball on the implementation of these programs if we're going to have impact that improves our community and gives people the quality of life that they deserve. And currently, as the program is constructed in Evanston, I think Dr. William Darity even stated the night it was voted upon that the impact is not going to be great and therefore not really address the difficult quality of life issues of our community. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Rochelle Zola, are you with us?
I am.
Please go right ahead.
Thank you. So I'm the white woman that Barbara Cole mentioned, and I'm starting a hunger strike because I want the immediate passage of HR 40. And we just started this campaign about 5 weeks ago. Some of you know me. And I just wanted to just get on the call. And people ask why I'm doing this. And so the best answer I can give as a white person is And I was thinking about that today. You know, you have that great family member or best friend, and you don't live near them, and they give you a phone call and they say, hey, I really would love your support, hold my hand, be with me, walk with me, and you would do anything for them. Well, I've only been here 20 months, and I deliberately came to Chicago and lived and participate in Black and brown neighborhoods. And that's the best reason I can give you, because it's like I met one person and she became my friend, and it was like, oh, let me introduce you to some other cousins that you didn't know about. And I got to know them, and they kept enriching my life. And then it was like, I had no idea of all the suffering that was going on. It's like, I cannot stand by, because all these people became family. And so that's the reason I'm doing a hunger strike, because if my brother, my physical brother, was in desperate struggle, I would do anything. I know anything I would do for him. And that's how deeply this community has reached me. And I hear people when I go to meetings, I went to every workshop, seminar, training, and inevitably someone stood up and said, it's not going to happen in my lifetime. Well, I'm turning 73 tomorrow. And the idea that I'm going to wait some more generations than my brother's life just didn't seem, I can't go back to how I was before. I just didn't understand the depth of the harm. So that's why I'm here today, just to listen and continue to learn. And I would love for all of you who are in the Chicago area just to join us at Dominican University tomorrow at noon. We're starting the kickoff of my hunger strike. And then after that, I will be at Melrose Park at Cosmopolitan United Church for the duration of my hunger strike. So I just want to say blessings and thank you to all of you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I tell you, if I didn't have so many other things on my calendar tomorrow, I would be out at Dominican University, which is a place that I have been many, many, many times, as I represent Dominican, and have actually spent time at the president's home and different things. And I appreciate your position, because last Sunday, I think I was with a group of Indian Americans, individuals from India, and we were raising money and gathering equipment to send to India to fight the pandemic. Tomorrow, I'm going to be in Chinatown and with a group of my Chinese constituents dealing with some issues. Today, I've already been to Chinatown at the funeral of a matriarch of that community, a woman named Bernie Wong, who is probably one of the greatest social workers I've ever met. And so there are many people who go beyond race and ethnicity in terms of how they feel about things. And, you know, I happen to believe in the human race, but I always say that I'm about as black as the ace of spades, and that, you know, that nothing will ever take that away. Nothing will ever change that. Although I support many efforts of things that go beyond black as a racial, ethnic, cultural being. So I appreciate your position and thank you very much. Is Ezra McCain still with us? Senator Roland Burris, did we miss you somehow or another? Was there anyone else who were trying to get in that we didn't get to?
Cam Howard wants to talk again.
Cam, you want to?
Yeah, thank you, Congressman. I just want to speak to two issues that Senator Patty Hunter raised. And thank you, Senator, for your long time tremendous leadership in the State House for Blacks in the state of Illinois, and certainly those of us in Chicago. Greatly appreciate your leadership over the years. You mentioned this $300 million that will go toward housing grants. One of the things I stated in Evanston when we had an opportunity to give public comment on the housing initiative as it was being voted on was that the 16 families, the Evanston 16, would be to this country like the Little Rock 9 were. That it was 9 students who initially desegregated schools, but now millions of students of all colors share and benefit from a diverse educational experience. And that the 16 families in Evanston would have the same impact on this country. And the statement that you made at $300 million, that you're pushing $300 million in the state to go to housing grants, primarily I think it is for people of African descent in the state, it's just proof of what the significance of the Evanston initiative is to Black people in the city, the state, and in this country. So thank you for sharing, and thank you for the work that the legislators are doing in Springfield on our behalf in this particular instance. Secondly, you mentioned the Illinois Transatlantic Slave Trade Commission, the only slave trade commission in the country that has been financed and delivered. And one of the key studies that came out of that that's been key to me as a Black man was the one that Linwood Tawheed did, Professor Tawheed did, when he looked at Black male marriage rates and white male marriage rates from 1865 to 2000. And he found that Black men marry at the exact same rate as white men for that same period. Even though our family structures look different, the number of two-parent families look different, but we marry at the same rate, Congressman Danny Davis, as white men, all in relationship to our labor force participation. So when you have Black men at a 90% labor force participation and white men at a 90% labor force participation rate, you're going to have the same number of marriages, Black men and white men. And he saw that over a period of 100 plus years. So when we look at our family situation, and we're talking about community public safety, because we know many of the murders in our community, many of the violence and crime in our community is directly related to the family structure that exists in our community or the lack of males in our homes. And so this study that was done in the Illinois Transatlantic Slave Trade Commission report has importance for us right now. We deal with the violence in our community. There has to be federal dollars, state dollars, city dollars directed toward male employment. We have to put Black men into families through employment. There should be a mandatory income for Black males. Get them back trained, get them back in school, get them back employable. So then we can begin to build our families and then begin to have more safety in our communities. But I think that raising the Illinois Transatlantic Slave Trade Commission report is so timely at this particular point because we have studies that we know and proposals that we know can work that we've already produced. And thank you, Senator Hunter, for bringing that to our attention today. Thank you.
All right, well,
Okay.
thank you so much. I understand that Senator Roland Burris, are you available?
Senator?
If you unmute Demetrius Griffin, you'll hear him.
All right. Griffin?
Yes.
Demetrius Griffin?
Hi, Congressman. I think he's under my name.
All right, then I think you are unmuted now. Senator Burris.
I don't know.
Roland, do we have you? We've got 9 minutes left.
And Alderman Simmons wants to speak again.
Okay.
Alderman Simmons.
Thank you. You can hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. So I just wanted to share some feedback and completely understand the frustration as a Black woman serving a Black community. Completely understand. And this is something that I think might be helpful. In Chicago, I know I went to the committee, I think it was Human Services Committee, when they had introduced reparations. And what I remember is that, and I could be off by a percentage point, so don't beat me up, that there were as many public comments there about, it was either dogs or cats or something a lot like that, as there were about reparations. And my recommendation is that you support your leader and support them in the expectation that you have of them to lead by showing up if you're able. So in our case in Evanston, we had a community process, and there was not as many participants as I would have hoped for. And I made sure that I got letters or emails or public comment to kind of add to that. But when reparations hits an agenda on a city of Chicago City Council agenda, when it's introduced by Rep. Will Davis in the state of Illinois, it's our responsibility to really show up, because it gives your leader the support, the visible support that they need to get support from their colleagues on their council or whatever their legislative board is. So it's not like Alderman Coleman or Alderman Sawyer is there alone on this. And I know it shouldn't take that, but I'm just talking from experience what it takes to actually get your colleagues, because it takes in Chicago 50 votes. It was nine votes. It ended up being 8 votes for a victory in Evanston. But that's just a recommendation, especially the young brother, and I don't want to get your name wrong, Jerron, I think, if you can mobilize a young community to let them know when those types of committee meetings are happening, that the voice of the people is heard at those meetings and that's shared, because that will help empower the legislator. And that's just that's from my experience. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. Ezra McCann, we've still got about 5 minutes.
I won't take nothing but a minute and a half. I have been yielding the floor to my leader. I'm a lifetime member of Cobra, and I've been yielding the floor to Cam. But I like for people to know that everybody should stay in their lane and allow their leaderships to come together to meet on this move for reparations. Me, I'm very helpful to Cam when it comes to the fire department in the city of Chicago. Well, right now we're at impasse again. 5,000 firemen in the city of Chicago. There's only 350 Black firefighters, and 250 of them are ready to retire, leaving maybe 100 Black firefighters. So I'm on the move, and again, staying in my lane. I am the one to represent the Black citizens on trying to get more people employed. As Cam said, we got the Black man to work for us to become very, very supportive as far as this family thing within the city of Chicago. So definitely, Congressman, I thank you for acknowledging me. But again, Cam Howard, we appreciate you, and you do know I support you all the way with the work you've been doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara.
Well, thank you very much. And let me also thank Dr. Binion, that I know is with us. And Mama D, I didn't hear you, but I heard you, because I know that you are engaged in this activity. As we get ready to actually come to a close, then let me just thank everybody who made the afternoon possible. Let me thank Tiama Romero for putting this together for us and for trying to make sure that we were able to get everybody in. I appreciate all of the comments. And I know that there are some of us who sometimes are a bit cynical in terms of what we believe and what we don't believe, what it is that we hope for and what we don't hope for. And we oftentimes feel that we're not making the progress that we ought to be making. Oftentimes when I feel that way, I think of something that W.B. Du Bois was supposed to have said to a reporter who asked him, says, Dr. Du Bois, I come to all of these meetings that you all have all the time, and you just moan and groan and weep and wail and cry and commiserate. Say, do you think that Black people will ever make it to the mainstream in American thought, American life, and American experiences? I'm told that Dr. Du Bois started to answer, and then he said to the young reporter, darling, let me just respond to you this way. He said that a people so deprived ought not to be expected to race with the wind. And when you think about that, I've never fully understood how our foreparents were enslaved, how a ship could roll into Africa and 20 or 30 sailors leave with a shipload of Black people packed in the holds of the ships like sardines in a can. I don't think that there's much we can do about those circumstances, but we can try and do everything that we can about what those circumstances have produced. Simply meaning that you can't always control what goes on around you, but you should be able to control how you respond and react to it. And so the struggle for equal justice, equal opportunity, equal treatment is a struggle that must continue. And it's not a project, it's not a program, it's a life. It's something that must happen for so long as you live. Dr. King said that you can't put this on a piece of paper. You can't put it in a resolution. You can't put it in an article. It has to be in the hearts and minds of the people. And so I guess if we're ever to be truly liberated, we have to reach down inside and figure out that, oh, freedom, freedom over me. Before I will be a slave, I'll be dead and buried in my grave and gone home to my Lord and be free. So thank all of us for being on this freedom track, on this freedom trail. It's been a wonderful afternoon for me. I hope that it's been a worthwhile afternoon for you. Again, Cam Howard, thank you so much. Alderman Simmons, thank you so much. And thanks to everybody who've made this afternoon possible. Please have a wonderful day, and we'll see you at the next session of something, doing something. I am not all people, but I am one. I cannot do all things, but I can do some. That which I can do, I will do, and you should too. Blessings upon you in your house, and thank you so very much. Bye-bye. Thank you.